Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk EFL. I'm James.
And I'm Millie.
And today we're going to be locking in our Week 3 Championship predictions.
Before we start, should we check in with our little Super 6 game that we've got going on?
Yes, let's go.
So just remember, 2 points for a correct result, 5 points for a correct score, 0 if you get it wrong completely. So we'll start with you, James.
Yeah.
You got 5 correct results, so 10 points in total. And I got 2 correct results, so I got 4 points.
Oh, damn.
No one got a correct score.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I did terribly.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Congrats. Shall we get into our predictions?
Let's go.
Okay, so starting off on Friday, we have Sheffield Wednesday versus Leeds.
Yeah, Wednesday lost 4-0 to Sunderland. They were utterly dominated by Sunderland. They did have a few chances, but Sunderland were far better than them. And the Leeds-West Brom game, 0-0. I think the result was about right. Both poor performances, in my opinion. But in terms of transfers for Leeds, they need to start bringing in some talent because they've got rid of so much talent. I fear that their team is going to be a lot weaker than it was last season. My prediction is going to be Sheffield Wednesday 2, Leeds United 1.
Yeah, a big loss for Sheffield Wednesday last weekend, 4-0 against Sunderland. I think it's worth noting though that Sunderland did beat another team early on last season 5-0, and that was Southampton, and they ended up going up. So don't panic just yet. I think there's plenty of quality in that team, and I agree that West Brom Leeds was pretty even, probably a fair result. I'd say it's probably a good point away from home for Leeds, and more importantly, they sealed that leak. I'm going to go for Sheffield Wednesday 2, Leeds 2. Next up, it's Bristol City versus Coventry.
Bristol City had Millwall at home and won 4-3. Obviously, Bristol City were more clinical than Millwall, but they did fall asleep a lot at the back to concede those goals. And Coventry beating Oxford 3-2. I think even though Haji Wright scored in the 96th minute, Coventry did deserve to win. They had more chances and more possession. But I think it's going to be a tight game. I'm going to go for Bristol City 2, Coventry City 2.
Yeah, I think it was a bit concerning for Bristol City that they actually went behind in that game after going 2-0 up. But they did do well to win in the end. Coventry were obviously involved in a very entertaining 3-2 win. I agree, I think the best team won in the end. It was a great last minute winner and brace for Haji Wright. I'm going to go for Bristol City 1, Coventry 2. Next we have Hull versus Millwall.
Hull drew 1-1 against Plymouth. I think the fans will be quite disappointed about that, although it is a good point on the road. And Millwall losing 4-3 away to Bristol City. They went ahead at one point in the game, but those goals were just very, very poor that they conceded. They're scoring, which is good, but scoring 5 goals in 2 games and still 0 points on the board, it's a little bit concerning for me. I'm going to go for Hull 2, Millwall 0.
Yeah, it was a lovely goal for Hull actually, but they might be frustrated with another draw and against Plymouth too. Yeah, for Millwall, I think the defence need to be doing better for all of those goals. They are conceding a lot, but they are also scoring quite a few. But yeah, like you say, 0 points, it's not good enough. I'm going to go for Hull 2, Millwall 1. Next up, it's QPR versus Plymouth.
QPR drew 2-2 against Sheffield United away. They did really well to come back from 2 goals down, with the equaliser coming after Jack Colback was sent off. Great point. And Plymouth drawing 1-1 against Hull. Great point. Good goal. Played some decent football. Could this be the turning point for Wayne Rooney's Plymouth? I don't think it will be this game. I'm going to go for Queen's Park Rangers 3, Plymouth Argyle 1.
I can only really echo what you say, and they did so well to come back and get the point in the end. It's a great point away from home. And it was a much improved performance for Plymouth last week against Hull. Could Rooney grow into this role and do well for Plymouth? I'm still not convinced. I'm going to say QPR 3, Plymouth 1. Same as you.
Samesies.
Samesies. Next up, it's Blackburn versus Oxford.
Blackburn drew 2-2 against Norwich away. Bit shaky at the back. Very lucky that nothing came from those defensive errors, but I think it's a good point away from home. And Oxford losing 3-2 to Coventry. I think they're unlucky not to go away with anything, but the better team did win. They both score goals, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to go for Blackburn 4, Oxford 2.
Yeah, Blackburn made some mistakes at the back that put them in some dangerous situations. I think it was a good draw in the end, and I think they found a little gem in Yuki Ohashi. And Oxford would have been absolutely gutted to concede in the dying moments of their game against Coventry. 2-2 for Mark Harris, which is a positive. a difficult game coming up for them. I'm going to say Blackburn 3, Oxford 2. Next up, it's Middlesbrough versus Portsmouth.
Yeah, Middlesbrough lost 1-0 to Derby. Quite surprising, I think. But they were poor. A poor defensive error that led to the goal. Poor in front of goal. And just look at the stats. It's like FIFA. Middlesbrough were dominating Derby and still lost the game. And Portsmouth, drawing 0-0 to Luton. I think that's a good point. But they should have capitalised on their man advantage. But they only posed a real threat about 15 minutes before the end of time. However, I'm going to go for Middlesbrough 1, Portsmouth 2 as my result.
Yep, it was a defensive error that led to the goal when they were punished by Derby. And he couldn't find the goal, despite 20 shots in total. It's a very disappointing afternoon for them, but I think it might have been a one-off. And I agree, I think Portsmouth would be disappointed to not have taken advantage of Luton's red card. Not as entertaining this time round as they were in their first game, but another point on the board for Pompey. I'm going to go for Middlesbrough 1, Portsmouth 0. Up next, it's Norwich versus Sheffield United. What are you going for?
Well, Norwich drew 2-2 against Blackburn at home. I thought that was an alright result for them. But they should have capitalised on Blackburn's shaky defending. Can't take anything away from Josh Sargent's goal though, it was brilliant. And Sheffield United drawing 2-2 against Queen's Park Rangers. I don't know what happened to them, but being 2-0 up, you would have thought Sheffield United would have been very, very comfortable at that point. So I'm going to go for Norwich 2, Sheffield United 0.
It was a good point for Norwich after a disappointing first game. And I think they had the better of the chances in their draw against Blackburn. And I think they're coming towards the end of their Jonathan Rowe saga. So I think they might settle down a bit better now. Sheffield United, though, would have been very disappointed to not go away with the win after being 2-0 up. I think maybe they got a bit complacent after QPR had a man sent off. And they were punished for it. I think I'm going to go for Norwich 2, Sheffield United 1. Next up, we've got Preston versus Luton.
Yeah, very disappointing result for Preston, losing 3-0 to Swansea. Very unorganised, but I do think it's going to change with the appointment of Paul Heckingbottom. I think that's a really, really good appointment to have. I think they should just write the last 2 games off and their season starts this weekend. And Luton drawing 0-0 against Portsmouth. Some half-decent chances. The goalkeeper thought he was Neuer, but ended up being more like Mr. Blobby. I think they were lucky to hold on for a draw. Like I said, I think Preston's season is going to start this weekend. I'm going to go for Preston 2, Luton 1.
Yeah, Preston are going through a bit of a rough patch at the moment, but it's better to do that now than at the end of the season. I agree, I think they'll settle now that they've appointed Paul Heckingbottom, and those first 2 games, they're going to need to just put that behind them now. And I think Luton actually had the better of the chances against Portsmouth before the goalkeeper just lost his head and got sent off. Luckily, they still got the point though. I'm going to go for Preston 0, Luton 2. Up next, we have Stoke versus West Brom. What are you saying?
Well, Stoke losing away to Watford 3-0. Poor result, never really looked a threat to Watford. They were utterly dominated. And I think for West Brom, drawing against Leeds, a draw was probably the right result. But West Brom's squad depth is so good that they really should have beaten Leeds. I'm going to go for Stoke 1, West Brom 2.
Yeah, I agree. I think Stoke struggled quite a lot against Watford. Been a bit of a mixed start to the season for them, obviously. They got a really good result against Coventry at the start of the season, and then they've just been battered by Watford. And West Brom might have actually been a bit disappointed to come away with just a point against Leeds after their winning start. I reckon West Brom are going to have a pretty strong season this year. I'm going to say Stoke 0, West Brom 3. Next up, it's Sunderland versus Burnley.
Sunderland beating Sheffield Wednesday 4-0 on Sunday. Utterly dominated the game. Some great football. Definitely brought the wow factor. And as for Burnley, 5-0 against Cardiff. What can I say? Just watch the highlights. But I do think there's going to be a little surprise up Sunderland's sleeve. I think it's going to be Sunderland 1, Burnley 0.
What a start of the season for Sunderland. Wow. Can they continue their season like this? Very early, but you couldn't ask for a better start, could you? And as for Burnley, ultra clinical. Head and shoulders above most, if not everyone else in the Championship. I don't think Cardiff are going to be the only ones on the receiving end of a thrashing by Burnley this season. However, I don't think Sunderland will get thrashed. I'm going to say Sunderland 2, Burnley 3. Up next, it's Watford versus Derby.
Well, Watford beating Stoke 3-0. Dominated Stoke. Thoroughly deserved the win. Looking really, really good. As for Derby, beating Middlesbrough 1-0. Bit of a surprise there. Gifted an opportunity but took it very, very well. Defence and goalkeeper were kept quite busy but held on for a really good result. However, I'm going to say Watford 3, Derby 1.
Yeah, Watford are another team scoring a lot of goals in the early stages of the season. KMB with half of those. Watford dominated Stoke, as you said. Good win for them. As for Derby, they punished Borough's mistake and then spent the rest of the game defending. Great 3 points though for them. I'm also going to go for Watford 3, Derby 1. Last and certainly not least, another big one on Sunday. Swansea versus Cardiff. What are you going for?
Well, Swansea beating Preston 3-0 on the weekend. Easy win for them. Decent 3 points. A nice kick-start to the season for them, especially going into this game against Cardiff. And Cardiff losing 5-0 to Burnley, they were just asleep. They did, however, come close to scoring after conceding an own goal. I think if Cardiff did score that goal, they would have given Burnley more of a game. I'm going to go for Swansea 2, Cardiff 0.
Yeah, for Swansea, I think it was a good time to play Preston. The goals weren't the greatest of quality, but it doesn't matter. That's 3 points on the board now for Swansea. And it was a disastrous own goal at the start of that game for Cardiff against Burnley. But I don't think we can read too much into that result. Like I said, I think Burnley are going to batter a lot of teams in this league. I'm going to go for Swansea 1, Cardiff 1. So those were our Championship Week 3 predictions. Let us know in the comments if you agree with us. Tell us your predictions below. While you're there, if you could give us a like and a subscribe, we'd be very grateful for that. And we will be back next time with our League 1 Week 3 predictions. See you then.
See ya.